We celebrated with a ride right through the Pyrenees from Pamiers to Luchon, one of the most famous finishing towns. Today he's got a huge battle to keep this polka dot jersey.
No, he certainly does, because the big climb right at the very end gives a lot of points. He's at the top of the leaderboard, and he's been there for a couple of days now, leading the other Frenchman, Jérôme Pinault, who has 92 points. Watch out for Andy Schleck, though, because Phil in third place with 76 points. He's now starting to threaten the top end of that competition, because out on the course, we've got a fourth category climb. That's not too important. We've got two second category climbs, but the final climb of the day, the points are doubled, so there's 40 points available for the first man to go over the top of the Portoballis.
We should see a great climb to the top there too. It's a very steep and dangerous climb as we now enter the action. Look at these beautiful pictures available to you in high definition as the riders have just entered the department of the Haute-Garonne. It's another glorious day here. 88 degrees forecast when they get to Luchon. Very light winds and sunshine all day. And our ride update, same as yesterday, in fact, and well, it isn't now, because just announced as I speak, Mauro Sant'Ambrogio has just abandoned the race. So 174 riders now remain in it. Teams intact are 9, and at the start there were, of course, 22. Let's catch up with the action so far today, results-wise. Interesting result on the first climb today, I must say, Paul.
Yeah, it certainly was. A slight break off the front end of the main field, because Federico led her there across the top ahead of Thor Hushovd and Alessandro Petacchi, and they were actually getting into a breakaway, hoping to try and get themselves away to the first sprint point of the day. In that competition, though, Chateau still leads, and at the first sprint point, well, there was a big lead out happening by Team Lampre, but when you look at the result, rather strange, because in fact it was Hunt, Kuniz and Pinault, none of the top sprinters anyway.
Leaving Petacchi with that 2-point advantage in the green jersey now as we head into the steeper climbs of the day. Since then the breakaway has formed. There are 10 riders clear, none of them affecting the overall. Here's all the names for you. Van Borg is over 2 hours behind. Johan van Summeren is 28 minutes. Sergei Ivanov, Lloyd Mondery, Alessandro Bellan. Remember, he tried to win the other day, got caught on the run into the finish, into Ravel Reda of Italy. Luke Roberts is there, Thomas Voigt, Sebastian Tergo, and Aitor Perez of the Futon team in there as well. There we are. We're just on the slopes now of the Col de Porte Aspet, and then we go down to the next climb down there at the second category marker. Then we've got the big all category climb at the end of the day. 2 kilometers to climb on the Porte d'Aspet.
Yeah, well, these riders have got themselves a fairly handy advantage over the front end of the main field at 4 minutes and 46 seconds. Although I'm looking at the composition of the breakaway, Phil, I'm not sure if any of these riders got the ability to survive as the rider did yesterday, Christophe Rablan, because that was a phenomenal ride by that man from AG2R. Sitting at the front end of the main field is Stuart O'Grady, and he's there to protect the man in yellow, who yesterday played a serious game of poker, I think, with Alberto Contador.
Yes, he's pedalled for over 68 hours, Andy Schleck, to gain just a hatful of seconds, 31 over Alberto Contador. Well, the breakaway up front isn't going to set the race alight. It'll happen from the peloton very soon, I'm sure.
Them some freedom.
Now it's on the way down where our cameras might pick up the steel in memorial to Fabio Casatelli, the rider who died in this race back in 1995. And we'll keep an eye out for that, but we're going to go past it pretty quickly, of course, and it was on the descent indeed when poor Fabio crashed and was killed. So we'll keep an eye out for that. It is, I have to say, a magnificent memorial stone. It's a steel, and all of the riders, I think, will just cast a little eye to the right as they descend. A little bit of artistic interference there by the cameraman, just sitting at the back. Big Thor Hushovd, he tried to get himself some points early on in the points classification. He's in second position in the green jersey points classification behind Alessandro Petacchi. And strangely enough, Phil, in the first climb of the day, those two riders went across in second and third, keeping a very close eye on each other. And when you see the peloton pack like that, they're keeping it all nicely together. Anthony Charteau, no points waiting for him at the top of this climb because there are 10 riders in the breakaway. That's it, as far as he's concerned, exactly how he wants it. Nobody can catch him up at the moment. In the centre there, the Australian Robin McEwen crashed more times than we can remember on this Tour de France, but still soldiers on. In the second line is Lance Armstrong. He also, we wonder that today maybe he'll try a move, but he does have this battle with the team event went between Radio Shack, his team, and the Spanish team Case de Pon, separated by a few seconds. So if one rider attacks from Radio Shack, expect Case de Pon to reply. Interestingly, Paul, neither Case de Pon nor Radio Shack are in that front group.
And that's a reason why I think it's been given a certain amount of freedom. That is a big battle going on there. But at the front end of the race, these guys, none of them really great climbers, which is why I think they've been given so much freedom. I do think, though, later on in the race, we'll see an acceleration in the peloton, because I do know that Alberto Contador and Andy Schleck will once again go head-to-head. Schleck for the reason being that he knows he needs to get time. I think there's a problem here. This is Mark Cavendish with a problem at the back. I'm not quite sure.
No, it's a flat toe, or is it shifting on the rim? I think he thinks he's shifting.
No, I think he may well have broken an axle. The way he was moving the back wheel there, he does have a problem with the wheel.
Yeah, it could be a broken axle, which would be a little bit unusual, but it certainly happens. We come to the top. This is over the top now, and now we'll need binoculars to see the first rider there. We'll tell you as soon as we do. Lloyd Mondery was leading over the top, I think. He was the rider on the same team, by the way, as yesterday's winner, Christophe Reblin. And I'll tell you what, at the finish yesterday, as we've gone back to Cavendish, he's looking, he might be changing the skewer here. Might just be a skewer breaking. Yesterday was warm congratulations from the race leader, Andy Schleck, when he went up to Christophe yesterday and congratulating him on an escape which was almost 170 kilometres. Come on, Mark, this isn't the time for a sprinter to get problems.
Well, he's not too far from the top of the climb, so he should very easily get back into the main field, because as you can see, this is sempre piano, as they say in Italian. They're going along very easily. Robbie McEwen at the front, he alongside with George Hincapie and Stuart O'Grady are turning out here to be the driver's fill of what we often call the autobus.
Let's see if we can. There's the result. It was Thomas Voigt who got through in the end, first over the top. Not surprisingly, he's taking the points and keeping it in-house because Chateau is on his team, and they got second with Tergo as well. So that's a good move, and that's good team tactics by Thomas Voigtler and Sebastian Tergo, both on the B-box team of Anthony, based down in Pau, as that's the gateway to the Col de Tourmalet. The top of the climb got timed out at 7 minutes and 37 seconds. Nobody in any hurry, no prizes for anybody here, as we now head on to the Col des Arts and then onto the Giant. And that'll be a different story.
No, it will. That will be when we start to see Team Saxo Bank and Team Astana come to the front to start to set up the battle between their two climbers. Down into the valley, there's a little climb actually in the valley which is not categorized, the Col de Buret, and then we go up the Col de Arez, and then it's the final sprint point of the date, and then 20 kilometers uphill to the top of the Porte de Balais.
So as they continue on, let me remind you again about our Cadillac Lead the Bog-In, and today it changes, by the way. Today it's Design Innovation. Now, just dropping back to the team car to find out what's going on is Lloyd Mondery, AG2R, in the breakaway, the teammate of yesterday's winner. So AG2R are on a high. We'll take a break and we'll continue on meandering through the Pyrenees on Celebrate. The riders descending the Porte d'Aspet at the moment. We have the big pack here, and there is the steel. We're passing live pictures. These are Fabio Casatelli, born on the 16th of August 1970. An Olympic gold medal was his. He died at this very point on the Tour de France in 1995. What a magnificent monument. Well, it really is a magnificent steel, Paul.
Well, I was there for when it was actually when it was open, because I was the PR man for Motorola that year when Fabio Casatelli died, and it was a very tough Tour de France for the few days after that.
I can only imagine it was such a shock at the time it happened, and Fabio Casatelli, his biggest win was his Olympic gold medal in Barcelona. The race has gone by, I'm sure, with thoughts of Fabio at that very moment as they've gone down, and they're descending, I have to say, at just about the same speed they descended on that fateful day. They were not racing down the mountain at all. Just a silly touch of wheels, and he fell on his head just on the road. He didn't even hit anything.
A couple of his teammates are in the race today, George Hincapie and Lance Armstrong.
That's absolutely right, and maybe we can expect fireworks from Armstrong, because he's lost enough time in this race to no longer be a marked man. Is he going to make a play near the end today, or will he try and go somewhere else? He's riding his 13th and last Tour de France. We're racing down the valley now to the Col des Arts, and that's a small climb out, takes it up to only just on 800 meters. And I don't think we'll see any reaction until after the descent of that and they climb the final all-category climb. That means outside category, means one of the major obstacles of this year's Tour.
Yeah, I don't think we'll start to see the wind-up until we get to the small town of Fronsac, where the last sprint point of the day is, and then we go along the valley road for about 10 kilometres, and that's when you'll see, I think, Team Saxo Bank and Astana start to turn up the screws.
It's about on the lower slopes now of the Col des Arras. This is just a short, stabby little climb, but they all hurt now at this stage of the Tour de France. This is the halfway stage of 4 in the Pyrenees. We do have a rest day to break it up, and Thursday will be our final day in the Pyrenees. We rest on Wednesday. There's the stats for you: 6.1 kilometres. So the average gradient on this is 4.7, Paul, 61 kilometres from the summit when we go over the top. Now, I've been busy scribbling away here to try and work out, because I said this was an experienced breakaway of 10 riders. Well, these 10 riders between them have ridden 36 Tours de France, Paul.
That's quite amazing. It's getting up to the total that you and I have got between us, which is actually 70.
That's incredible. That's terrible, dear. And 3 of them are rookies, by the way. Aitor Perez, it's his first Tour. Sebastian Tergo, B-Box, his first Tour. And Francesco Reda of Quick-Step, it's his first Tour as well. There's Robbie McEwen licking his lips, not with enthusiasm, I'm afraid, because he doesn't like the mountains, but he's riding a Tour de France and he's getting through it, and good for him. Off the bat looking for a drink. This is the Australian Luke Roberts, who is now turning into having a marvellous Tour de France here, Luke, and hats off to him. It's his second Tour, and he was in the action yesterday and he's in it again today.
He's looking very good, Luke Roberts. I think this is probably one of the best seasons he's had for a number of years. He's had a great amount of success in the early part of the year, finishing 5th overall in the Tour Down Under. He's going to go across the top of that climb there in 2nd place. If you get a chance to look at the way he pedals a lot more smoothly than a lot of the other guys, and I think that comes from his background of having come from the track.
So the leaders are over the top again, and they're not remotely interested in the King of the Mountains points. I don't think anybody until today had scored any points in the King of the Mountains, so they're not too worried about the points. And this is exactly what Anthony Chateau wants, taking all the points away. He'd loved for the 40 points available on the last climb of the day to go to this breakaway for sure. He breathed a big sigh of relief, in fact, but I wonder. So Voigt and Tergo, the 2 teammates of Anthony Chateau, have taken the points anyway into camp, and Brian Van Borg in 3rd place.
Yeah, there's a big, huge advantage for having this breakaway of 10 riders clear off the front for Anthony Chateau, because if they do take the 40 points away, it's going to make him look a lot more solid at the top end of that competition.
9.5 minutes at the moment as we see Lloyd Mondry. He's got his drink, so he's happy now. He started his descent to the Col des Arras. We're heading down into Fronsac now. Come down from the HC, the all category, all the way to the finish. It's about 1 kilometre or so of flat road. I spoke to some Tour de France, ex-Tour de France riders this morning, and they've been up there on the bikes, and they said they were hitting speeds of 100 kilometres an hour on that descent. Be great. So I think, Paul, you'd agree with me, they'll probably touch 100 to 110 kilometres an hour coming down that final descent today, won't they?
Though I've seen recorded speeds in the Pyrenean Mountains. In fact, I remember looking once at Sean Yates's speedometer going down the Col de Tourmalet, and it recorded a maximum speed of 112 kilometres an hour. And I think, if my maths is correct, that's over 70 miles an hour.
Amazing. When I was the organiser of the Tour of Britain many years ago, I was the race director in front, and a Russian cyclist passed me. And as I looked at my car speedometer, I was doing 70 miles an hour, and he went past me laughing. I didn't see him coming either. That was the unfortunate part.
Yeah, but that's only on the straights. The technical descents, the average speed will be between 50 and 60 miles an hour. But seriously, on some of the straight roads, when you let everything go, I do remember myself one time, Phil, going down the Col de Tourmalet on the side that we will ascend up through La Mongie. There's a very straight part of the descent, and I was going so fast in a straight line that I actually lost my nerve and put the brakes on.
Good heavens, and you were a good descender. At least you keep telling me you were.
Well, in my memory, I probably was.
No, you were a good descender. 9 minutes 40 is the gap. They're not at the top of the climb yet of the Col des Arras. Are they going to be 10 minutes when they get there? Maybe. But they're just keeping the same tempo on this climb. Now, remember that the 10 leaders are speeding down the other side, heading into the town of Fronsac. There's Bottom roads for these boys now as we continue on the valley road, but all around these fellas, knocking them on their shoulders, are the giants of the Pyrenees today, as the pace being set here by Sebastian Tergo, who's been going well in the mountains today in defence of Anthony Schotto.
To move to the front, they're all going to start to feel that little nervousness creeping into it as they realise that the serious battle of the day, the most important strategic point of today's stage, is about to loom up in front of them. That, of course, is the Porte de Valais, a climb of 20 kilometres, and a climb which will take them from around about 600 metres in altitude to 1,800 metres in altitude at the top, and that's 1,200 metres of climbing.
Well, we're just on the base here now. Keep your eyes peeled. The leaders have just about started the climb, but the peloton are just about to enter the area where we should see the start of the climb. It tops out 21.5 kilometres from the finish, but it is the best part of 20 kilometres up, and we are now at 41.4. So we should be seeing the start of the climb. Banner, or panneau as they call it in French. Those little yellow signs there are warning the riders of the type of road they're about to see around the corner there. Beautiful Pyrenean town. Look at this.
Should be
here we go.
Just about any time now. This Morlion is the start of the climb. There's the banner. 19.3 kilometres they've got it down as officially.
That's it. And these are the leaders who have hit it first, with a lead of 10:49 officially as they get onto the lower slopes. Hang on to your seats now, because I tell you, this is a real brute of a climb. How far before we start seeing riders come off the back of these front 10, I wonder?
Well, it's at this point, when you've been in a breakaway for a long time as these guys are, you start to question your own sanity for having got into the breakaway and ridden hard over the flatlands. Just looking at this climb, Phil, it is a fairly complicated climb, 19.3 kilometres long. The height at the top is 1,755 metres to be exact. The average gradient 6.1, and from the top it's 21.5 kilometres, or 13 miles down to the finish, and it is down to the finish literally.
Yeah, it's over 6,000 feet in climbing, and then you descend almost all of that as we go back down to Luchon. There's the Italian flag, the Spanish flag. The cracks are already forming here. Luke Roberts won't like this, the rider just peeping in to our picture, the Australian. Now, this is the rider I would fancy to go forward here if he can, because he's dreaming of victory. That's Voigt, his teammate, who is a very fast sprinter, by the way. Here, Sebastian Tergo.
Yeah, he's had a lot of placings in the top 10 of the sprints at the Tour de France, and a lot of them have been in 6th position. He won a stage of the 3 days of De Panne in the early part of this year, and that was the first sign that we got that there could possibly be a new French sprinter. I think he's setting the tempo here for, as you've mentioned, his teammate Thomas Voigt. But watch out for Alessandro Bellan, because that move he made a couple of days ago on the road into Revel indicated to me that the former world champion has got some pretty good form in his legs.
Well, this is going to be a most interesting climb for sure now. Brian Van Borg, the leaky gas rider from Denmark, sitting at the back here. Voigt doesn't look terribly confident to me, the way he's riding off to the right of our picture, looking over his shoulder. Oh, he wants something, he wants a drink, so that's okay, that's routine. Slopes haven't started yet. This is the... Well, as we're watching down on the riders here, 9:54 is the breakaway. As the peloton drives on here, and it looks as though we've got, I'm hearing on race radio that there has been a crash at the back of the field at the moment, but and there it is, and that looks like it's one of the riders from Fouton has gone down. That is Mayos who's crashed, and one of the riders from I'm looking to see if it's Sandy Cassar who's gone down, but I don't think it is from FDJ. That's Mayos. It's Anthony Geslin has gone down, just landed on his back. I don't know how that happened. The camera's just swung to it. I heard the announcement on race radio, and then there we were. He's not looking. Is he okay? He's a bit disturbed here. This man. He's his first time in his Tour de France. Ivan Mayos. I think he's okay. He's got a cut on elbow. Let's hope he comes round okay. There he is. Race doctor's with him. Nasty bit of road rash on his right elbow there. Well, that's the sort of thing they don't want at that stage of the race, Paul, just as they start the climb.
No, this is the worst place for it to happen, and I didn't get an ID on the rider there, team from Cervelo test team, but certainly the rider from Futon Cerveto, he's got himself back up into the race, and he's riding on.
This is Anthony Geslin here, who's also hurt his back, or yes, the doctor's just checking out his back. That Gerard Porte, who's checking him out. He was indeed the same doctor, by the way, who was first on the scene to that tragedy back in 1995 when Fabio Casatelli died on the descent of the Col de Porte d'Aspe, where we saw earlier today the steel which was erected in his memory. 35.9 kilometers to go now. The gap, as we would expect, just coming down, but not very quickly, really. 9:39, 9:35. It's hard, I promise you. They're going to use O'Grady till he can do no more, and then he'll be joining that group off the back of the bunch.
This is a different pace that an O'Grady is dictating now. In the early part, it's what I was calling a false tempo, just to keep the main field riding along. But now, all of a sudden, they've lifted that pace. O'Grady himself has lifted that pace, and what he's starting to do, he's starting to eliminate a lot of riders from the group.
Robin McEwen just going off there. Thor Hushoft is also dropping back as well. So they're splitting off at the back of the peloton, by the way. I saw Edward Boysen-Hagen is also slipping away there for Team Sky. He's their sprinters, it's turning out, in this tour. He's had a couple of third places and a fourth.
There's Tony Martin going back as well, and that's a big surprise. Dave Zabriskie on the far side in the Garmin Transitions jersey. Most of the big names. Linus Gerdemann is going back, and that's a bit of a surprise to me. Fabian Cancellara, we're not too surprised about that, because Cancellara is not one of the great mountain goats of the professional cycling game, but certainly a man you can really count on the flat days.
Watch out for him on the time trial when we do the penultimate time trial.
David Miller.
David Miller's just gone through. Martin Elmiger, champion of Switzerland, also gone through. And there is Mark Cavendish. He's coming through these Pyrenees really good.
Oh, he is. He's got his pilot fish for the mountains with him there just in front. Bernie Eisel, a very popular professional bike rider, and turning out to be a fairly good replacement for George Hincapie in the lead out for Team HTC Columbia.
Meanwhile, Stuart O'Grady causing the pain and destruction at the back of a big peloton still here as they ride the lower slopes of the Porte de Balès. Up front, the gap is slowly tumbling. It's now inside 9 minutes, so they've taken a good minute and a quarter off them since the
gap dropped. It's dropped from 10.5 minutes to 7.25 minutes very quickly indeed, and it's all because, basically, initially because of one man, and that's Stuart O'Grady. Now another man has taken over the pace, making Jens Voigt, a seasoned campaigner at the Tour de France. I'm just looking at the faces of these guys, Phil. This is a very difficult day, a very difficult climb. Jens just looking over his shoulder there to try and ascertain what sort of damage he's doing on the pack.
Well, I've seen it all before so many times, but I still shake my head in wonderment at the way these boys climb mountains. And when they're done so quickly, as we've got the example here. This is Sebastian Tergo. He's tried to keep the pace at the front up for Thomas Voigtler, his teammate. Now he's finished. Brian Van Borg is in trouble. He's just hanging on. Just in front of him is Luke Roberts. So the breakaway of 10 is beginning to dissipate.
Well, I'm trying to figure out who set the tempo at the front to split it. We're halfway up the final climb of the day, and it looks as if it's Johan van Summeren has decided he wants to whack out the tempo of the front. He is, I would say, a very good climber. He has worked for Cadel Evans in the mountains in the past, and now he's probably thinking about the possibility of a win for him. And in fact, he looks to me, Phil, as if he's starting to ride away from a lot of guys in this group.
Well, it's Van Summeren, then we've got Sergei Ivanov, Alessandro Bellan, Thomas Voigtler, and tucked away at the back here, Aitor Perez. They are the men going forward now, and looking at the distance to go, they've got about 10 kilometers to the summit.
Also slipping back, the former national champion of Holland, Moerenhout, as you just mentioned. Yep. This is not yet the steeper part of the course, Phil. We're still looking at around about 7.5% in gradient, and in fact somebody's recovered here, because it looks to me as if Van Borg has ridden himself back in to make this a six-man group.
Well, he's done very, very well to recover and get back on here, Brian Van Borg, but he has 6 riders going now, and Van Summeren has dropped off the front, and Thomas Voigtler has started to apply the tourniquet for France. Meanwhile, back in the peloton, this is Nikki Sorenson, again in the death throes. He'll go for as long as he can, then he will disappear until in the end it'll be yellow versus Continental.
Go down the descents like a maniac to get himself back into the peloton.
4 4 stage wins already to France in this year's Tour de France. I did mention yesterday, I wonder how long it is since France won so many stages, and then I remembered at midnight last night, it was last year, but it was by default because they disqualified a rider into Bourg-Saint-Maurice for drugs, and that gave Sandy Cassar the stage win. So they did win 4 stages in the end.
Yep, now there you can see there, this is a good move by Voigt, but he won't be too happy to see that because the gap is coming down fairly dramatically to 6 minutes and 40 seconds. But he now will get himself into this rhythm, and he's not a real pure climber. He's going to have to climb on courage. Le Petit Prince going backwards here, Damiano Cunego.
Went for the win yesterday, didn't find he had the legs towards the summit at Aix-Trois-Domaines. Now he's not even going for the win today, he's just going off the back of what's left of the peloton. It is still a reasonably big peloton too. Now looking down there, of the leaders of the Tour de France, Schleck, Contador, Sanchez, Menchov, Van den Broek, I've seen those riders there. George Hincapie also cracking.
Well, slipping backwards there, Hincapie, Jani Brakovic. I'm surprised to see him go back. He's had a very hard Tour de France this year. It's his inaugural tour, and he looked so imperial, Phil, when we watched him winning the Criterium de Dauphiné, when he was actually attacking Alberto Contador in the Alps.
Well, so I'm sorry to see Yanni going off here because the battle might be opening up in favour of Cees de Pon in the team race right now. But look at these boys here now. Another change. Gone is Nikki Sorenson as we continue to set the pace with Fuglsang. We're looking at the lonely figure here now of the champion of France, Thomas Voigt. He's taken his moment when it came down rather quickly. It's now inside 6 minutes. Voigt has felt he's got to run for the top because he's still got here the best part of 8 kilometers to climb to the summit of this mountain.
Well, just looking a little bit further down there, Phil, you might just spot the big shape of Johan van Someren trying to ride himself back into this race. And he's, I think, currently in 3rd place on the road. And the man in 2nd place on the road is Alessandro Bellan. You can't discount the quality of this guy's pedigree. You know, he's a world champion. He beat Damiano Cunego to win the World Championships a couple of years ago. And he will be itching to try and get a win for Team BMC.
Left now, setting that pace. And then what will happen? Will they attack? The man will be left on his own, the yellow jersey of Andy Schleck.
Well, his team, Andy Schleck's team, is doing a phenomenal job here because they've halved the advantage that the Breakaway had at the start of the climb. It's down to 5 minutes from 10. That's
Roach.
Nicholas Roach.
Nicholas Roach has what a time to get a front wheel puncture, which has dropped him from that chase group. Now he's going to have to get on because Nicholas Roach is having a brilliant Tour de France here.
Oh,
he's
this is a bad change.
Place. 9 seconds on this climb is a long way.
Well, this is not a 9-second change. That was a very slow change. That was one of the slowest front wheel changes I've seen in a little while. He's got himself back up, but I think the mechanic was panicking a fraction there.
Well, he's got to race back up to this because Nicholas Roach, 14th, was in that chase group there containing the yellow jersey. It is on the front here, Fuglsang of Saxo Bank setting the pace at the moment.
Well, everybody's queuing up behind now to try and figure out what tactics are going to be adopted on a day like this. But still, Fuglsang on the front, setting the tempo, riding alongside a couple of supporters, getting a look there into the eyes of Andy Schleck. But this time it's a reversal of roles because sitting in the wheel of Andy Schleck is Alberto Contador. Yesterday, Andy Schleck decided he was just going to follow the Spaniard anywhere he wanted to go. But today, maybe he has a different plan.
I will look at the face here on the right of Chris Anker Sorensen here. He is hurting and it's not his turn to set the pace yet. We see the concentration on Jakob Fuglsang. 5 kilometers for the leader though. That's going to be a welcome sign. This boy is free to fly just at the minute. His racing jersey fully unzipped. 3 miles, it sounds awful, 3 miles. Let's stick with 5 kilometers to the top now for the champion of France. And he's still got just under a 6-minute lead.
Well, that's what he wants to conserve. If he goes over the top with a minute's advantage, I don't see them seeing him at all.
Well, there's a fine athlete of a man there trying to keep up with the Tour de France, but he'll have a job here now to Saxo Bank. Lance Armstrong is still in this group. He's running about 12 men down on this race, and that peloton, Paul, is still very big.
It is, but it's starting to get reduced in numbers. I noticed 3 riders in there from Radio Shack. Konstantin Sipsov dropping backwards.
Yes, Sipsov also falling away now. That's to be expected, this youngster in the Tour de France at the moment. 2 Saxo Bank. He's still to the front now. Gone is full sang. Up comes Sebastian Tergo. He looked bad enough when he wasn't making the pace. So here he is now, just giving all. And then what will happen, Paul, when he comes off the front? And he'll have to come off the front in a few more meters. That will leave yellow against 1. And 1 is Alberto Contador.
Check out Astana. There's 3 riders from Astana there alongside the leader Alberto Contador. That could be extremely important and critical on the run in towards the finish. Levi Leipheimer is in this group. There's 3 riders from Radio Shack, and it might be a good time to remind ourselves that in the team race only 8 seconds separates Radio Shack from Team Case d'Epargne.
Now this is one of the steepest sectors of the course now. It is 8% here. David de la Fuente has drifted off the back as well, so Astana has lost 1 involuntary there. As we now get high amongst the pine trees here on this mountain, Samuel Sanchez is still in that pack as well, so the men that matter are still in this front group. And what about Denny Menchov? He's there too, and as always with the silent assassin, you never see him till it matters. Back to the front, as they say. Here comes Thomas Voigt, still blazing a trail alone up the pass of the Port de Balas.
Well, he is still conserving a good 6 minutes over the yellow jersey group, and that could well be extremely important for him. Chasing him on the road is Alessandro Bellan, and Bellan's gap now, Phil, is around about 39 seconds. Nicholas Roach has had a very unlucky and badly timed front wheel puncture, and he's trying to ride himself back into this group, trying to keep himself in the top 15 overall.
Out of 10 tours, also unhooked at the back. And interesting to see too that Tiralongo, the climber for Astana, has also been sent backwards here, and he hasn't even had time to go and do some work for Contador.
Well, that just goes to show the kind of work that Nikki Sorenson is doing at the front end of this group. He is slowly but surely eliminating some Astana riders 1 by 1. But I think the negative thing is what he's also doing is putting his own teammate Andy Schleck into a situation where over the last 2 or 3 kilometers of this climb he could find himself isolated.
Well, that peloton now, look at the size of it now. It is slowly, but in the last 2 kilometers rather quickly, been split up here. You are in the heart of the Balas now. This is the region here, and this is and there's an attack now because he's lost his pacemaker. He's stretching Alberto Contador. We go 1-to-1 as we head up towards 25 kilometers to the finish.
Well, none of the Astana riders followed that, and look, you can just see Nikki Sorenson, Phil, going backwards. Now all of a sudden Andy Schleck has taken control. Behind him is Jürgen van den Broek, behind him Sammy Sanchez, and coming across is Denny Menchov.
Well, this is the real battle now, because even though we're behind the leader Thomas Vogler, it is now 1-on-1 for these top 2 boys. Slipping away off the back of the race there too was Moreno now for the Amigo Farmo team, and going off too, or looking under pressure on the left, was 41. That was Basso. Ivan Basso, also with Cadel Evans.
Luis Leon Sanchez in difficulty too, number 161.
Sanchez,
Sammy
here.
Sanchez now, the Olympic champion. He knows he's got a chance here, Phil, if he can get to the top of this climb. Menchov is there. He's always present. He rode across that gap as if it was nothing.
The first 5 riders in the Tour de France here are right there, and that is on the right is Sanchez, in the yellow is Schleck, on the far right as we look is Menchov, Alberto Contador and Jürgen van den Broek. These men are earning their place now as the top 5 riders in this year's Tour de France.
Well, Contador just keeps looking over his shoulder. There's number 21, Lance Armstrong. Not quite sure where he is at the moment, but he's still in with the mix a little bit.
Yes, just struggling now, the lifting of the pace by those 5 riders up front. It might be just putting Lance here into the red zone. Clearly wants to hang on in there for the moment. Looking at the clock here, 24 kilometers to go. They're just over 3.5 kilometers from the summit of the climb.
Well, one man is taking responsibility of the race now, and that's the man in the yellow jersey, Andy Schleck. He's not asking for anything. He's not even scared about the fact that he's got Alberto Contador in 2nd position. Looks over his shoulder just to check.
This is amazing, Paul. We are seeing Schleck dictate the pace to the greatest climber in the world. This cannot be doing the psyche of Alberto Contador any good at all.
Well, there's Alexander Vinokurov. There's Gesink. There is Levi Leipheimer and Andreas Claude, and they're in the next group on the road, but the leading 5 are leading away.
And let's not forget Thomas Voigt setting a lone trail here at the front, the champion of France now. He's the rider who's getting the marker. He is approximately 2.5 kilometers from the summit, and if he can get over the top with about 2 or 3 minutes in hand, he will win the day for France. And how fitting would that be today?
Yeah, I'd have to say, Phil, as we catch here Tergo going backwards, he only really needs a minute over the top of this climb because he's a fairly good descender, and I don't see any of these guys, except maybe Sammy Sanchez, bridging a minute's gap on the descent.
Now, what is Alberto Contador feeling like here, being dictated to by the maillot jaune? And one thing's for sure now, Paul, Andy Schleck shows no respect to Contador.
None at all. He wants to honour the yellow jersey. He's used his teammates, he's eliminated the rest of the field, and now he wants to try and dictate the pace.
Well, as we're looking here at these 5 riders, these riders are 5 top riders in the Tour de France, and they're staying that way. Now, don't forget, today's Stage 15 Tour de France is commercial-free coverage made possible by the 100% electric Nissan.
That is a magical picture of the Pyrenees, and actually, Phil, it's rather strange to see it quite like this, because normally the Pyrenees are very often clouded.
They are indeed, and this man, well, head and shoulders above the rest right now as he looks at the slopes heading up towards the banner on the summit. 22.8 kilometers to go. We will top out at 21.5 kilometers to go. 1.3. So he's looking now for the action on the road.
He's looking comfortable, Thomas Voigt, as the next group has slowed down. A little acceleration from Andy Schleck, and nobody has actually done anything about it afterwards. Contador happy just to sit there, looking over his shoulder. This group now, Phil, has swelled, and now that is a little bit of a surprise to me on a day when the first 5 in the overall standings could actually create a bit of a... The move there's coming from Gadret.
It's a little bit like yesterday here now. The 2 leaders have slowed the pace down because they're hitting each other and they're not giving an inch and going nowhere. So the other boys are going to have a go. Why not? Levi Leipheimer getting in behind John Gadret. That man, Alexander Vinokurov, is back up here as well. Sanchez has got back in the action. 181.
Well, they're looking for a big ask as they head up towards the summit of this climb with Thomas Voigt. He has now only got a kilometre to go, and he's still got 5.5 minutes over the yellow jersey group and a good minute over Alessandro Bellan.
Well, this is incredible riding by Thomas Voigt, and he deserves to win the stage. He's got rid of all 9 men that was in the breakaway with him. He's veritably sprinting to the top of the Porte de Balès. It is a very, very fast descent. They're going to cover that 21 kilometres in about 20 minutes to the finish.
Well, Alberto Contador bouncing on his pedals there, and there's John Gadret. John Gadret's a rider who rose to prominence a little while back, Phil, as a man who finished high up in the big climbs of the Giro d'Italia.
Pace being set at the moment by the new phenomenon from Canada here. This is rider Hejidal, nearest camera with the orange helmet. He's finding his legs in the Pyrenees now, and he's looking for a top 10 finish in Paris.
Well, that would be phenomenal. I think what's more important when you look at rider Hejidal, to me, he looks very relaxed and very recovered in the mornings when we talk to him before the start of the stages. That's an indication of a big rider with great class in these Grand Tours.
Well, he's 13th, but you know, he's only 8 seconds off a place in the top 10. Oh, just a little bit more than that, Paul. About 17 seconds off a place in the top 10. They might get that today.
Well, he might, but this man also might get himself a very impressive stage victory as the champion of France here rides in front of a French crowd towards the top of the high spot of today's stage, the Porte de Balès. He really does rise to the occasion, this young man.
To the open countryside of the Pyrenees now. This is why they're so much different to the Alpine climbs. They're much more stark, a different sort of beauty here. Alessandro Bellan has been joined at the moment by Aitor Perez too. So they're fighting out 2nd and 3rd place on the climb. They too will go over the top. Well clear as we see the move from Andy Schleck. I'm glad our cameras has cut back to that one, and it's not Contador yet who's reacted. Now he has. Well, it was Vinokurov.
Well, Vinokurov came
what's happened? His chain's off. Schleck's chain's off. Yeah. Well, his chain has jammed and Contador's gone. Well, this is terrible. Well, for Schleck. Well, look at this.
Well, this is the big panic now. He's got to get himself back into this race, and this is so unfortunate. This is why you have a big problem when you don't have any teammates alongside you. He's probably lost around about 20 seconds here.
At this moment in time, he could be losing his yellow jersey. What an incredible event this is. Now all the spectators and a little assistance from the neutral service, he's back on his way. That's when it happened. His chain, I don't know, it hasn't snapped, it just came off the wheels.
It just came off at that point there. Alexander Vinokurov came up alongside him. These guys have now seen the possibility of winning the Tour de France. This is when fair play, Phil, has been thrown out of the window. But can this man ride himself back into the yellow jersey? Because this guy has got the form today. He was actually just putting Alberto Contador onto the ropes in a boxing match this afternoon when he had that badly timed mechanical incident.
Well, Contador's, we see the summit here of the Porte de Balès. The champion of France takes this highest climb in the Pyrenees so far. Will get higher as he goes over the top now. He's about to plunge down this mountain. This is the in-fight. Now, Alberto Contador, joined by Sanchez. Gadre is still here. Menchov is still here. But gone is the yellow jersey. Now, this is going to be the chase of his life.
He is going to be very angry right now because he will know they're taking advantage of a mechanical mishap as he rides past everyone there. Rides past Armstrong as if he's standing still. He comes up to Andreas Kloden as if he's standing still. This man now will be a man possessed. He'll ride with anger, and I think he'll ride himself back up to Alberto Contador. Contador's move there, I think, was a move of panic.
Well, Contador doesn't really know what happened there. He was just starting to recover, I think, as the chain came off and he went by him. There's Dave in the clean bottle. He is going to be pretty excited himself running up there, but as we now see the yellow jersey applying the tourniquet, kick and kick again. Now we're seeing just how much strength this man Andy Schleck really has, and he also descends very well.
Well, I'll tell you what, there he is just in the bottom, Phil. He's probably about 15 seconds down on this leading trio. Denny Menchov is trying to put the nail into the coffin of Andy Schleck. This is the performance of a champion. He didn't panic at all. He stopped to the side of the road. He put his chain back together, and slowly but surely he's riding himself past everyone. Look how fresh he is compared to Rodriguez. He's coming now up to the wheel of Robert Gessing. He will catch these riders, Phil, I'm sure, before the top of the climb. Second and third over the top, that's Perez and Alessandro Bellan, but they're looking for 1.5 minutes.
They still have a great chance of staying away to the finish. Contador is almost looking back here to see where he is coming. I don't know whether he's waiting or not, but he's very conscious of the location of Andy Schleck as he tries to sprint clear. Schleck has caught the back wheel of Robert Gessing, and he's going to have to recover quickly and keep on going here. Time is running out for that yellow jersey right now. He's up behind Leipheimer.
Well, he won't give up. He's caught them group by group. He's now up to Ryder Hezjedal and John Gadre. Excuse me, out of the way, guys. I've got to get myself back into this race. Alberto Contador has seen this as a chance to try and win the Tour de France this afternoon.
I know everybody wants the shots, but they're going to have to move those motorbikes out the way right now. He's in amongst this very select group containing Vinokurov again. Ryder Hezjedal is on the shoulder of Hezjedal. He is pushing his way through as the flag of New Zealand flies there. Contador is still trying to open the gap, but the risk on the descent now, Paul.
There's going to be risk, but I tell you what, you get behind this man in the yellow jersey this afternoon if you want to, because he has not asked for a help from anybody else in the Tour de France. This is courage at its absolute best. Andy Schleck has not asked for anything from anyone in this group here, and he's riding himself slowly but surely back up. I still make it, Phil, around about a 15-second gap that he's got to bridge, and I reckon he'll do it on the first few corners on the descent.
Well, there's nobody who can help him. That's the truth of the answer now, where you're on the yellow jersey, you're on the defensive. It's down to you. You've got to recover. You've got to catch back up. And the gap is there at the moment. His overall lead in the Tour de France in one cruel breeze. blow has been currently halved. Once we go over the top of this, we've talked about this being one of the most dangerous descents in the Pyrenean chain, where speeds will hit over 100 kilometers an hour, and then there's a chicane right in the middle of those high speeds. Guessing has gone under the impetus of the raid here.
I make the gap, Phil, around about 20 seconds between Alberto Contador and the yellow jersey of Andy Schleck, and Schleck is still going. He's still riding on his own, not asking for anybody to come forward and look after him, and he's dispatching riders one by one. Just sitting on his wheel now is Jürgen Vandenbroek. I'm trying to see if there's anybody else there, but I'm not sure there. You can just see Alexander Vinokourov. Levi Leipheimer is there as well.
100 years in the Pyrenees, and what a day. The champion of France goes first over the top of the mountain, and the yellow jersey is placed in difficulty. These mountains continue to make the stories, don't they? Over the top now with the time gap of, what did you see the time? I didn't see it. 4¼ minutes on the leader, but that doesn't matter. It's the seconds between Contador and yellow, and look at the face of this now. He's going to rip down this mountain.
I make it 13 seconds over the top, Phil. 13 to 14 seconds over the top, and that's not very much on the descent. It'll be around about 200 meters. If this man can take 1 or 2 risks in the corners, he should be able to pull himself back into the Tour.
Well, settle down for the dizziest descent we've probably ever seen in the Tour de France, and I'm just glad I'm not on a motorbike or following these boys. It is long, fast superhighway. We know they can hit speeds well in excess of 100 kilometers an hour, and we're on the way down now, and it gets tricky towards the end. And what a time to make a descent. You've got to bridge 13 seconds to the 2-time winner of the Tour de France.
Well, Andy Schleck now has got to do all of this completely on his own. Look at the way he's using all of that road. Excuse me, Mr. Motorbike, get out of the way, because I am going faster than you. I'm going to ride myself back into this race.
So as the riders make the descent here now, Schleck has it all to do. Well, they continue now, braking late, holding it around these tight bends. This is going to be an incredible descent down here. It continues, don't forget, for 21 kilometers. So we're going to we have to take an early commercial break. We want to bring you back as fast as we can to see the descent. The Maillot Jaune of the Tour de France is fighting now to keep his overall problem that befell Andy Schleck. That's not Contador's fault, and you can't expect him to wait for anybody when you're only 20 kilometers from home. This is a chance for him now to take charge of the Tour de France as they race down to the bottom in Luchon. Andy Schleck, the gap is 23 seconds between him and Contador now. Schleck is not descending as well as he used to, and Contador, he's lucky, he's got 2 great descenders with him, and he's following them.
Well, I think it's Sanchez is doing the majority of the damage there. The last time check was 22 seconds, so he's conserving his yellow jersey here at the moment, but he's losing a big chunk of time to Alberto Contador, and that's probably the most important chunk of time that he's losing.
15 kilometers to go for Schleck and Vandenbroek here. Looking again, it's still 23 seconds is the gap. They're closing in all the time. As we look again at the incident here, which happened, I don't quite know what happened there. He really kicked, his wheel came off the ground, but that's nothing to do with Contador, and you can't blame Contador for pushing home the advantage. This isn't in the first 10 kilometers of the race. This is the race with 20 kilometers to go.
Well, you can see here, this is one of the riders who has been caught, and I have to admit that I'm not really sure that this is a real fair play move by Alberto Contador. I think he's a man who is desperate to win the Tour de France, and he's taking any possible advantage of a mechanical incident to try and get off the front and win.
Well, I think that's a bit unfair comment, but 9.9 kilometers to go for these riders on the way down at the moment, and the man who is going to win for France today is going to be Thomas Voigt, as he still holds 4:20 on Schleck and about 4 minutes 3:54 on Contador.
Well, I think, Phil, the reason that Contador is taking advantage of a mechanical mishap by an adversary here right now is because he was not confident that could actually get away from Andy Schleck.
But you may also note that it's not Contador setting the pace. It really has never been Contador setting the pace. He has always sat on the pace of Menchov and Sanchez as they continue at 4:19, the gap between the yellow and the front, and it is 25 seconds. Andy Schleck is losing ground to the Contador group.
Yeah, he's got himself a 25-second deficit at the moment. It is now starting to stretch out. He got himself back to around about 20, and now I think on this easier part of the descent, he's going to lose a big chunk of time.
at the leader descending like a stone into the finish in Luchon. He's holding a 4-minute 18-second gap. This is Thomas Voigt, fittingly a French champion, going to win on the day we celebrate 100 years of the Pyrenees. 10 kilometers to go for the two riders who are chasing him here, Bellan and Perez. Somewhere there, we haven't seen him, is Johan van Summeren behind, and then the group Contador, and then behind that is the group Schleck. Now Schleck versus Contador, the difference now is 23 seconds.
Well, you did tell me a few moments ago that Contador...
Oh, my goodness. Phew.
Little Tommy Voigt takes a few risks going around that corner.
Well, a nice check on the back wheel, but that's how much Thomas Voigt wants to win. That was the chicane coming off the high speed, where they're approaching those bends at about 80 kilometers an hour.
Well, it's about 23 seconds, I think, the difference between the Voigt group, between the Schleck group and Andy Schleck. But Vinokourov has now caught back up to the group as well.
24 seconds as we speak. The computer here is running around like a very busy machine today. And yes, Alexander Vinokourov has got back on the descent here. Very fine piece of descending as Schleck drives on. Jürgen van der Broek doesn't seem able to help Andy Schleck. And as we get back to the Contador group here, it is Menchov and Sanchez, the men who fight for third in the podium, who are driving this race to the finish.
I wonder what Luke Roberts is thinking about this situation, Phil, sitting on the back of that group as well, because he was in that early breakaway, and he's now seeing the great champions of the Tour de France fight it out on the descent of the Porte de Balès.
Well, what a dramatic Tour de France this has been since the day we set out from Rotterdam, when two riders crashed in the prologue. That in itself was unprecedented, and were out of the Tour de France with broken bones. Here we are now, almost 3 weeks down the road, and the Tour stories are still being written here in the Pyrenees.
Well, the gap's opening up now to Schleck and Contador. It's looking at around about the 30-second mark now. He is losing town here, and Alberto Contador's right on the front of this group, with Menchov in second place and Sammy Sanchez in third.
Well, Luke Roberts here has come back here along with the quick-step rider, which is Redder. They've rejoined the chase. Andy Schleck has got himself a bit of help now. Jürgen van der Broek, he's fighting for 5th place overall, don't forget, and was hoping to go higher. And the men who sit in 3rd and 4th are up ahead, so he's got to ride whenever he can. There'll be no help from Vinokourov now. His team leader is up in that front group.
Well, Vinokourov has got to this group. He will just sit there like a limpet mine on the back of the group and wait to see what happens later on the descent. Jürgen van der Broek riding with Andy Schleck here. Schleck, I think, will feel a little bit disappointed at losing out in a situation like this, because it's not from his physical ability that he's losing the Tour de France here. It's actually a mechanical failure.
He's under 10 kilometers to go. It's 4 minutes and 10 seconds since Thomas Voigt went under there. Again, 27 seconds is now the gap. So he is actually losing ground because of the descending here of Sam Sanchez.
Yep, well, those three riders in that group, Phil, are sharing the pace. Alberto Contador is working with Menchov and Sammy Sanchez to make sure they can open up the advantage over Andy Schleck.
Continually to descend here now. He's got wider roads now as he continues the pedals down into Luchon. He knows now he's won this, barring an accident. We don't wish that on him at all. He's 1:34 and still holding off comfortably Bellan and Perez.
30 seconds is the gap now between Contador and Schleck, and at the start of the day, Phil, it was 31 seconds that separated them. Just one more second and Alberto Contador will be pulling on the yellow jersey at the end of this afternoon.
And poor old Andy Schleck. Really, you don't wish that on any yellow jersey in the Tour de France. It's all written in the annals, in the history gone by. As we now see Contador go to the front here and to continue to keep the pace going down the mountain. 3 of them are working, 2 of them are just...
The question is, where will the yellow jersey go at the end of today's stage? Voigt inside of 3 kilometers to go. He's actually pretty much now filling the outskirts of Luchon as he drops down the wider part of this road. Very fast descent now. We're touching speeds of around about 90 to 95 kilometers an hour.
Well, we're looking at the moment, Contador is 28 seconds, so Schleck has come back just a little bit, and he's holding on to yellow. It's going to be a desperate countdown once Contador is under that banner down in Luchon. This man's going to make it first. He's going to win for France, but who will be the new leader tonight? That is now the... Everybody fighting for wheels now as they charge off this mountain. Scramble. This is Vinokourov trying to hang on to Andy Schleck. These are desperate moments for Schleck. His team made all of the pace running up the hill. Then it was down to him. He launched the attack. We now know what's happened. Quick look at the computer. 32 seconds. He's behind by a second at the moment in the yellow jersey race. 1 kilometre. We've come home to Luchon, and this is a town which has welcomed the Tour as many as most, and he's got all the time in the world. This has been a remarkable escapade by the champion of France, Thomas Voigt. Listen to that crowd. Now he can smile.
Well, he's a very popular professional bike rider, Phil, and he probably doesn't know the drama that's going on behind him, because the drama could see a change in the yellow jersey at the end of the day. But Voigt will keep pedaling right up until the last 200 or 300 meters, adjusts his glasses there. He will enjoy this final few hundred meters.
Thomas Voigt comes home now to the cheers of the crowd here, conquering the major mountain. He won in Perpignan in 2009. He now wins here in Luchon this year. He can't believe it's all worked out for him. He doesn't care about the Tour de France overall. He's 69th and he's 77 minutes behind either Contador or Schleck. But he wins the stage, and a champion of France on the day we celebrate 100 years of the Pyrenees has brought it on home.
Well, it's a fitting end for this celebration, Phil, for the French and the French national champion to take the glory on a magnificent day. Here he is into the final 150 metres of the second Pyrenean Act.
He pays homage here. Christian Prudhomme in the back there, all smiles, the director of the Tour de France. They've made 4 vicious days here in the Pyrenees to celebrate it.
In the
looks like the Secretary of State there is in charge of sport, Ramayad, looking on from behind and applauding him as she comes home in the leader's car. The battle for second place. The Contador battle, by the way, is hovering at the moment. It is now 35 seconds in favour of Contador for yellow by 4 tonight.
Well, it's going to be very close as they come in. They're pulling the cars out of the stops there at 2 kilometres to go, and that's probably because a little bit further up the road we've still got the Garmin Transitions team pulling out of the way here. This is a battle. This is a real pursuit here as they come into the final few kilometres. And for Andy Schleck, what a day this has been for him.
Well, the computers are now saying it is 40 seconds advantage Contador, which puts him in the lead by 9 seconds. It'll all come real in a moment. Andy Schleck is going to do the time trial of his life here as the former time trial champion of his country. He's going to have to race to the line, because quite literally now that jersey is every second counts. He's at 2 kilometres. Alessandro Bellan takes second place ahead of Aitor Perez. Oh, does he? We'll see off this bend. He might have gone too early here. On the inside, the former world champion being challenged by a first-time rookie, and Aitor Perez may get this in his first Tour de France. He's gritting his teeth, and I think he did. Of the field, Sanchez grits his teeth. Is he going to be allowed to come home in 4th place? It looks like he might be, because no, there's a kick by Contador on the right here. Even Contador gets the corner first and comes off the bottom bend. He's going for gold here himself, just to prove a point and take the 4th place, but he's not going to get it. It's going to be taken off him on the line. John Gadret will get that as he's chased by Luke Roberts as they come over the line. The time starts now. The 31 seconds is on.
Well, Phil, at the 38, at the 1 kilometre to go point, it was 38 seconds, and depending on how this man can finish it off here, it's going to be very close.
He's chased back really, really well. There's 15, 16 seconds gone. Grit your teeth, because now he's fighting to keep yellow, and I don't think he can do it. 23 seconds has gone now as he races up towards the line. The time has passed. Now the yellow jersey goes to Alberto Contador, and Andy Schleck will have to rethink his tactics now as he comes over the line. He's out of yellow by about 8 or 9 seconds.
Well, that was a massive battle. Ryder Hezerdal coming in here with Robert Gesink and Levi Leipheimer as well. They've lost a little bit of time. Leipheimer will probably remain in the same place, but it could be a little move into the top 10 for Ryder Hezerdal, because gone has been Ivan Basso. He's disappeared for Liquigas. So Hezerdal here, Phil, is riding for a top 10 place.
Yes, it comes in today. Well, wires will be hot tonight about whether Contador should have attacked or whether he shouldn't. Paul Sherwin says he shouldn't. I say he should. good, and you can take it from there. But it's a Tour de France. It is not a gift for anybody. It's a tough event, and it's the mechanic's fault perhaps, or it may have been Schleck himself. But either way, Contador took advantage today.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, whether you're for or against the move by by Alberto Contador, tomorrow will be a great battle. They will come back out again and fight. There are 2 more Pyrenean stages to go.
Well, let's have a look at the results. Voigt wins today for France on a very important day. Alessandro Bellan gets a good result for the American BMC team. Aitor Perez, Futon Cerveto, rookie on the Tour, 3rd. Lord Montgomery, 4th, and Luke Roberts getting a terrific finish in 5th on this difficult day in the Pyrenees. First timer Redder gets 6th. He leads home Alberto Contador, Samuel Sanchez. The gap 250 on the winner today, but the big names, with the exception of Schleck, were there. Further down, Schleck finishes 12th, 50-10, 39 seconds off. It's cost him his jersey by 8. Wanted to do. This has been a tremendous day of racing, and it's rewarded the champion of France with a terrific result today for Thomas Voigt, and he probably doesn't even know about the real drama of this year's Tour de France, which was happening.
Mechanical out there, do you feel that it was fair what Alberto did?
Oh, it's not up to me, you know, what's fair or not fair, you know. These guys didn't race, you know, and I already crashed in Spa, so that was fair what they did today. Today, you know, that everybody, you know, have to race like that. I also attacked, and then I dropped the chain, and of course they took this opportunity, you know. I was tucked in the back, and if it's fair or not, that's not up to me to decide, but I would not have raced like that.
Was it a moment of panic at that time, or anger?
No, I can't tell you, my stomach is full of anger, and I want to take my revenge, you know. That's for good.
How much risk did you take on that descent?
Pretty much.
Thank you.
Well done. Well, there we are. We're going to see a great day tomorrow. Make sure you're watching Versus tomorrow for the stage in the Pyrenees.